Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to reflect on the politically stormy month of September. Go back over what I talked about a month ago and look ahead to October, when some of the events that were set into motion this month reveal their consequences, whatever they may be. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, a while ago now, over summer, I was saying, September's going to be stormy, September's going to kick off, there's a load of things happening in September. So a month ago, I did a video about all the problems that were going to be coming the government's way in September, what Boris Johnson would have in his in tray, and depending on the decisions made, the impacts that were likely to hit in October, what we're getting ready for now. And I'm not necessarily planning on doing these every month. This isn't like a report card every month. But just maybe while it remains very chaotic. We are very chaotic political times. There are so many crises. I just think it does good to take stock now and then. Like take the coronavirus pandemic. Do you remember that? Still going on, You don't even see it mentioned on the front pages of the newspapers anymore. Anyone would think it had gone away. With so many emergencies, that even a pandemic that killed 150 people one day alone. I wouldn't say yesterday, they were reported yesterday, so I guess that means the day before. It's still killing nearly 1,000 people a week. And somehow this is seemed to be made less of an issue, which is part of the problem. Earlier this month, the rate of infections dipped a little. For the population at large, that is. Going to get onto school kids in a moment. As a result of that dip, the rate of deaths per day is now at the moment going down slightly, just a little, because the infection rate only dropped a little. Now, obviously, deaths lag behind infections by 2 or 3 weeks. But they're linked still. The government keeps saying, we've broken the link. No, you haven't. The rate of infections is going up again now. So we know that in a week or two's time, so will the rate of deaths. And the rate of infection amongst 10 to 14-year-olds, school kids, has been climbing. That hasn't dipped. That's over the whole of this month, that's been climbing, dipped over summer. Well, as they weren't at school in summer. I think I talked about it in a recent video, actually, and I had to put it here because I referenced a graph, and then apparently I forgot to put the graph in the video. Here it is. Hopefully I remember this time. Otherwise, keep shouting at me. I'm pretty sure I'll remember this time. Now, obviously, this group are not only largely unvaccinated, as the decision to vaccinate kids has only just been made, months after other countries decided to, but they're also jammed together for hours at a time in unventilated rooms without masks. I actually thought I was going to get away with it this year, because normally you have this sort of freshers flu at this time of year anyway. People have gone off for summer, you come back, all your horrible germs mix. But now you've got COVID in there as well. It's like, oh. And I thought, not teaching this year, get away with it. But then my partner's youngest goes to college. Nah, I'm ill. Not with COVID, thankfully. And at her college, which is run by a moron, by the way, but for various reasons, not just this. If a student chooses to wear a mask, they're not compelled to anywhere, but if they choose to wear a mask, if a teacher tells them to remove it, they have to. It's like they're trying to kill themselves, or at least subject them all to long COVID. Needless to say, the absent rate at this college is sky high, but the absence rate across the country is also worryingly high. But what about vaccinations then? Talked about vaccinations. A month ago I said, that we were barely in the top 10 anymore. We were supposedly, a lot of people in the country still probably think, oh yeah, we're beating vaccination. Oh yeah, we've got a right march on them. You probably still think we're there. Top of Europe in terms of vaccinations. No, we're not. In terms of, so I said last month, we were dropping further and further down the league tables. We've carried on dropping. 8 countries in Europe are ahead of us in terms of fully vaccinated per capita of the population, percentage of the population. 8 countries ahead of them. Quite a few well ahead of us. Several countries on about the same rate have started boosters. So if you take France, for example, technically on the percentage scale, they're slightly behind us, and only very slightly behind us, on percentage of the population fully vaccinated. But because they've been doing boosters for people, in terms of total number of vaccinations carried out, they're ahead of us. So in terms of actual doses given per capita, we're outside the top 10 now. I also talked about the shortage of key workers how the government would struggle to address the shortage of lorry drivers in particular without going against their Brexit ideology. I queried about where they were going to get these lorry drivers from. Well, here we are, a month later, we're still wondering. Not only are the shortages still biting, we've seen a corresponding petrol crisis resulting from it, as well as the issues we already had with food, medical supplies. We also then had the gas shortage thrown in. That wasn't related to this. But of course, it's a crisis on top of other crises that just made it worse. You know, higher energy bills, absolutely rocketing energy bills, lack of CO2, which has impacted food production. The situation has just been made much worse. The headlines now are all about Boris Johnson saving Christmas. I mean, they said that last year, and a load of people died from his so-called efforts. And I said that if the government did nothing of value, then all this would do is buy time until the situation blew up in their faces. You know, they're just going to do what they did last year with the pandemic emergency. This time they're just going to do it with every emergency. Goes wrong. They say, right, we have this plan. We're going to do this thing. And then everyone goes, oh, great, they've got a plan. No problem. Obviously, you have to give them time. Don't expect overnight results. Then you get a little bit later, you go, oh, this plan doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, this went wrong. We've got this new plan. And that's what they just keep doing. We've got this new plan. We've got this thing. You know, so they're just going to keep doing that. Probably they'll have to sack the transport minister at some point just to save Johnson again. And he hasn't been sacked. There was a reshuffle this month. He wasn't sacked in that, so they're saving him for that. But the government have also not done anything to deal with the crisis. So the impacts will now be felt into October, get worse in November, worse still in December. You know, I'm not going to go over the folly of their watered-down lorry driver visa plan. I've already pissed on that bonfire. But we're also seeing the end of furlough today and the universal credit uplifts going. And I talked about that as well a month ago. The government tried to excuse it by saying the public don't want the uplift to remain. They'll even try saying, oh yeah, people don't want, they say they want to be paid less to encourage them to work harder. That's what the public tell us they want. You know, even the people apparently who are going to be losing over £1,000 a year, which is a lot for most workers, but you're talking about those on the lowest incomes, already below a living wage realistically. Apparently they somehow want this to go ahead. And with furlough ending, there'll be a lot of newly unemployed people tomorrow. We don't know how many. The government don't know how many. The government obviously hope that some of these people will avail themselves of the jobs in the shortage areas caused by Brexit. I might argue that if that were the case, wouldn't they have done so before the very last moment? I mean, if I was sitting around thinking there's like 1 million, 1.5 million people on furlough just like me, and they're going to be unemployed tomorrow. I mean, not everyone will. Some, you know, the companies will retain them on some basis maybe. But obviously there's not full-time work for them, otherwise they wouldn't need to be on furlough anymore. And you'd look at the situation and think, I want to get one of the good jobs first. So you'd want to get in early, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want to be sat around for the last minute. But the age-old problem for unemployment and jobs vacancies is likely to be true here as well. Where you have large numbers of unemployed people, do you know why? It's because there's not that many vacancies. And where you've got loads of vacancies in an area, do you know why? It's because there's not enough workers. So matching up the workers with the jobs, it's no good having a load of jobs going in Essex if you live in Newcastle. And reports are suggesting that a million, as I say, 1 million to 1.5 million people are still on furlough today. Obviously, none of those people can be on it tomorrow, ends today. So how many will face redundancy? Have to wait and see. The government obviously expect it to be not that many. They obviously think that the unemployment will rise by a politically affordable amount. And for those who do find themselves out of work because their company hasn't picked back up yet from the pandemic, the government can always drain public sympathy away from them by saying, well, it's their own fault, there's loads of jobs available, why don't they just get one of those? Why don't they train as lorry drivers or something? As if training as a lorry driver wasn't a time-consuming and expensive business for which there is little government support. But, you know, that'll work on people. People just think, oh, yeah, I mean, we need lorry drivers. Why don't they just train as a lorry driver? Imagining that you can just do an online course and you're a lorry driver. You know, jobs in travel are particularly badly affected because the government can't just wish the pandemic away when it comes to international business. They can tell hospitality to open up again. They can tell businesses in this country, yeah, just open up, it's fine. No problem. They can't really do that when it requires international travel. So if you're one of the 1 million, 1.5 million whose last day of furlough, it could well be that you need to apply for universal credit, even if it's just for top-up, because you've got some income but not enough. But that's been cut by over £1,000 a year, as I say, today. Rising energy bills on top of all this, higher petrol costs, higher food costs. And where the government has also cut funding for apprenticeships, it also means that businesses are less likely to be able to afford to help retrain the British workforce whose skills right now do not match the skills needs, because our economy is in a complete state of flux. We've lost a load of skills, have a load of people with skills that we can't use now. We need retraining. Big style. Government aren't funding that. And then we have Brexit, of course. Now, a month ago, the government was still publicly planning on having checks on EU imports beginning tomorrow. And I said this would slow down our imports of food to a crawl. That would have been a disaster. Couldn't work out why the government hadn't delayed it. But they have now delayed it. They've abandoned those plans. Don't fancy a population that might actually go hungry in large enough numbers to threaten their power. But although checks have been delayed again, and will continue to be delayed until the government have no option, the Northern Ireland Protocol is still a red hot topic. Over the month of October, I mean, who knows, they'll just keep kicking the can down the road maybe, but there are people increasingly of the view in the EU and in British politics that the government may actually suspend the protocol in the next few weeks. Apparently Labour have suggested that they are told that they might do this just to distract from bad headlines. At which point, what will the EU do then? If they are ready to apply retaliatory tariffs, then I can't imagine the headlines from this action would be a whole lot worse, or better rather, than from what they're trying to cover up. It could be worse. Everyone is of the firm belief that David Frost actually wants to scrap the protocol. In other words, if Boris Johnson gave him the say-so, that David Frost would do it tomorrow. But Boris Johnson is the one holding his leash. Will Johnson's calculation be based on what he thinks the EU will do in response? So David Frost has made it clear that he believes the EU have always responded positively when the UK has behaved poorly, in bad faith, on Brexit deals. In other words, he thinks that throwing tantrums works, gets results. Now, if he's right, and he persuades Johnson to suspend the protocol and says, they won't do it, they never do anything, they're not going to do anything. And I say suspend the protocol. I don't mean trigger Article 16, because that's how the press will say it. It's not. It's got nothing to do with Article 16. If he suspends the protocol and the EU do nothing other than sound disappointed, then he'll be right. If they think the EU will do nothing and they fire off immediately with targeted tariffs on UK imports, then it'll have backfired completely. So very high stakes stuff. But this is all for October now. But given that September also threw up a couple of unexpected emergencies, I'm not going to bet against October not having the odd googly to bowl as well. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. Until next time, I'll see you later.